A morning commute took a perilous turn when they failed to stop completely at a red.
Thanks for watching.
The driver grappled with relief tinged with guilt, realizing the gravity of their deception. And the following confession was shared on Reddit. Cop pulled me over and I called 911 and lied to get out of going to jail. When I was 19, I was running late to work in my tiny PS economy car, and on fumes of gas, I didn't come to a complete stop on a right turn. Lights behind me, so I pull over. I know I barely got any gas at all and was almost to a gas station, hence why I rolled through the stop a little, trying not to have the car die. At the time, around 1995, a new digital phone had come out called Voices Team, now T-Mobile, and their whole big thing was the phones were digital and not cellular. They were the first phones with caller ID, and one of the big things the salesman had said over and over was since it was digital, the signal couldn't be triangulated or traced. Not that I cared, but it stuck in my mind. Well, as I give the cop my license, registration, and insurance card, I got an idea. I knew if I was late to work, I was going to lose my job. They were super strict there. So I get an idea, and right after I hand the papers to the cop and he's walking back to his cruiser, I called 911 and tell the operator I just saw a guy with what looked like a shotgun walk into a 7-Eleven that was about 2 blocks away. I confirmed the address, then I hung up. About 30 seconds later, the cops come sprinting to my car and hands me all my stuff, and Rush says, "Come to a complete stop next time." Then peels off to the direction of the store. Pushed my car to the gas station that I'd almost made it to, and felt pretty pleased with my ingenuity. I was an idiot, and I confess. Edit. Wow, this blew up. I forgot to mention I would have gotten arrested, booked, and released because I was driving with a suspended license for unpaid traffic tickets, and I had a bench warrant for it. Because I'm an idiot. So it wouldn't have been just a few minutes late to work. The job was a physical high turnover one that didn't tolerate much. Thank you to the kind souls giving me these medals/awards. Don't think I deserve them, but I'll pass it along to those who do. And now we will hear the judgment and some confessions from the people. Bomber Toby. My wife gets clocked 145 kilometers an hour in a 100 zone, which where I live in Aust is instant 6-month suspension and massive fine, and somehow talks her way out of it. She swears she didn't show her tits or anything, lol. He gave her a speech about, how do you think I would feel having to tell your mom or your husband that you were dead? Pretty brutal, but I haven't seen her drive like that since. Running late to work. If I'd have done it, no way I'd get off. Shinji 257. Being polite does go a long way, however, I'm not sure if I'd go as far as to give him a BJ. I don't really go that way. Center Putton. I had this happen to me. Except he took my license and insurance card, said, "Don't you fucking move," and sped after the guy. I sat there for 40 minutes. Another cop came, gave me my stuff back and a ticket. I fought it and eventually won. Amped vodka. I was in my brother's old GTR when he decided to drift it around a corner. As we entered the drift and begin going around the corner, we see a cop car pulled up just around the bend that had stopped somebody, with the cop by their window papers in hand. I watched as the cop and guy in the car watched us drift around the corner, shock on all of our faces. The cop then literally throws the papers back at the guy in the car and almost falls over as he sprints back to his car. My brother just floors it as soon as we're straight. We outran the cop and ducked him behind a supermarket down the road. A few minutes later, we hear the sirens speed off down the road we were on. Pretty sure the cop didn't have chance to catch the registration, as my brother was never caught. Hot Pringle in your area. Someone was shot at Rutgers Fest 2011. I was there, blocks away, with my hands cuffed behind my back for public intoxication. Pang, pang, pang. Here are your papers. Act like an adult, jackass. And they peeled away. It was all about under 40 seconds long. My_Mexican_cousin. My friend and I were racing one night in our rural area when we were in high school. I saw lights behind me and felt my heart sink. As I was trying to contemplate how fucked I was, we zipped past a half a dozen cows grazing on both sides of the road. We kept going and the blue lights stopped to tend to the cows. Thanks, cows. Deleted user. I once got out of prison time, most likely because a cop got a call on his radio. He was in the process of searching my car, while me and some friends were heading to PCB for senior trip. He smelled weed when he stopped us for a seatbelt violation, and we gave him a 20 sack of weed that we had been smoking and told him it was all we had. He didn't believe us. We had about a quarter pound of MJ and about 20x pills. He was literally climbing into the back of my Excursion to open our suitcases when the call came in, and he got out and said he better not catch us with drugs in his town again. He took the $20 sack, a box of cigars, and let us go. Eyes. My car stalled one time after driving through a deep puddle in an intersection with 100 pounds of weed in the trunk. This was in the 70s, when your alternator would get wet and kill your car. He pushed me through the intersection and told me to just wait for 20 minutes and my alternator will dry out enough to start my car. I almost got religion at that moment. Almost. Summer 11, 2818. This is the fakest nonsense you've ever seen. First off, almost no one had cell phones in 1995, ESP a broke 19 years working a shitty job. Second off, you said you had UR license suspended BC, you were so broke you couldn't afford to pay traffic tickets, but then how were you able to somehow magically afford a brand new cell phone? In 1995 no less. Yeah right. I'm calling BS. This is just way to contradicting. Third, you said your job was crazy strict and you couldn't be late even once or old get fired, but then when someone pointed out you would have been late regardless after getting gas, you switched your story and said you weren't actually worried about being a few minutes late. After all, which is it? That's literally two different stories. I'm not buying this one. From it, read it now. Were you there and can witness it was faked? David Hogan. When in elementary school, someone phoned in a bomb threat at my school. As most of the police were at the school, they robbed a bank across town. Small town, small police force. Jamaica 86. My high school had bomb threats called in at least once a month because people wanted to get out of taking tests and shit like that. It was the same routine every time where the alarm goes off, everyone goes out to the football field, and we wait there for an hour while they check the school to verify that it was another false alarm and let us back in. They would send maybe 1 or 2 cars tops to help the school resource officer, so the rest of the town wasn't really affected. I don't remember hearing of anyone ever getting caught for calling one in, but I can't imagine how much trouble they'd get in today where that kind of thing is taken a lot more seriously. Not underscore Mr. Nice. If you ever have to say, if I'm late to work, I'll get fired, it's not because they're strict. It's because you're fucking up and aren't telling us. Nobody gets fired for being late once. Deleted user. When I was about 19, I was living on an island in Puget Sound. I got pulled over on the main highway of the island for speeding, and while the cop was standing next to my car waiting for me to hand him my license and so on, a woman pulls up from the other side of the road and calls out to the cop that some cattle had broken a fence around the corner and were wandering around the highway. He sighed, looked down and shook his head, jabbed his hand with my license and registration back into the car and said, "Just slow down, okay," and trotted back to his car. I was taking a different road and didn't go around the corner to see if there were any cattle, but I've always wondered if that lady was telling the truth or doing me a solid. Deleted user 2. You just forgot to mention that the reason you didn't want to get pulled over was because you had a bench warrant and not because you just didn't want to be late for work? What a totally true and believable story. How on earth people reply to these obviously fake stories with sincere comments is so beyond my comprehension. Royce Vu. Everyone in here scolding you like the whole point of confession is to confess shit you knew you weren't supposed to do. Real Madrid 314. I was an idiot and I confess. Is perhaps the most artificial ending to a post about calling in a false police report where cops are going to be running into an innocent business with guns drawn. Fake and asshole, or real and asshole. Great Jerb. Yoda-mizer. My brother is a cop in Alaska and someone did this. Except they gave the description of the guy with the gun. My brother almost shot someone that fit the description as he reached his hand into his pocket fast. He was turning off his MP3 player. The person that called it in was charged pretty heavily. For those reading, please never try this. It is mean to the cops and to other. American Sniper. I was pulled over once for racing with someone next to me at a stoplight. Clocked at over 3x the speed limit. Cop waved both of us to pull over. I did. The person next to me kept going. Cop tells me to stay put. I stay put and take key out of ignition. He goes after the other guy. Cop shows back up after about 10 minutes. Didn't even ask for my info. Walks up to my window and thanks me for not running. Tells me to keep it on the tracks if I want to race like that. He asked if I knew who that other guy was. Nope was my response, winky face. Panic at the Misco. Nice story. After being pulled over myself one time, a guy drove past the cop and I with his finger out the window screaming, "Fuck you." Cop handed me my license, bid me a good day, and pulled that other SB over. I was happy. Zoa Plupgator. I mean, this sounds illegal, which would have been really bad if you got caught, but this is actually pretty smart, uneasy face. I wouldn't have the balls to do this because of the repercussions of getting caught, but it worked for you. Deleted user. As a teenager, my friend had an ounce of weed on him, and we were smoking in my car behind a closed building on a Sunday. Cop pulled up, smelled the weed, and found the ounce. I had my hands on the hood of the cop car, first and last time, getting patted down ready for the cuffs, when dispatch came on the radio and said something that made him throw the weed on the ground and peel out of there. One of the luckiest days of my life. I was scared shitless, but realized he did not take the blunt we were smoking in the car when he left. Finished it up at my friend's house and couldn't believe our luck. Have a Reddit. So you do know that swatting calls like these have led to the deaths of innocent people who get caught up in the armed police response? E.g. a deaf customer in the 7-Eleven who doesn't hear the police commands to stand still and put their hands up? Fizzing Wing was B. When I got home from Africa Marine Corps Reserves, my buddy was carpooling 4 of us to our hometown. We were still in our field uniforms, which were filthy from our extended stay in the field. We get pulled over and the cop walks up, leans down into the driver's window and sees 5 Marines and just goes, "Get the fuck out of here," and turns around and walks back to his car, then drives off. One of those moments I'll never forget. LOL, we still laugh about it to this day. Don Knotts. I got pulled over and a buddy behind me saw it happen. He called in a guy wandering the 7-Eleven parking lot a block away with a gun. Cop leisurely wrote out a fat ticket and slowly drove over to the July 11th. Never even got out of his car and drove away 30 seconds later. Moral of the story, it only works in cities where the cops give a shit. Edward Sampson. FYI, you don't have to immediately pull over for a cop when they're behind you. You could have easily gone to the gas station and stopped there if it was within pushing distance. Sometimes the officer even appreciates this, as it gets them to a safer place than the side of the road, or even just to a deeper shoulder that gets them farther off the road. This has got to say is a valid question. Zilla. But, did you make it to work on time? Deleted user. I was flying down the road in my Firebird doing 70 and a 40 when a cop lit me up. I pulled over, anticipating a very angry cop lecturing me about my speed. I sat there, looking in my rear view, waiting. 2 long minutes pass, then I hear him say over his loudspeaker, "Tonight is your lucky night. Slow down." He put on his siren and sped off somewhere else. Ear Collector 217. I wish I thought of this when I got pulled over this morning. I'm a 25-year-old girl and, if I'm allowed to say so, fairly attractive. I've always heard that if you're funny they go easy on you, so I tried to make a joke. When the officer came to my window, I said, "I know, officer, I need a pilot's license if I want to be flying like that." All he said was, "I don't get it." And that's the story of how I got a speeding ticket this morning. IHATMEKNE. I think it is funny everyone's saying he couldn't afford gas, but he could afford a phone. In '95, very few people paid for a phone, especially with VoiceStream. This was when you got a new phone for free every 2 years if you knew what you were doing. By the way, I believe your story. Deleted user. Early 90s. San Francisco. I bought one of those license plates from a souvenir shop. I believe they were real and taken off cars from the junkyard because they seemed authentic and beat up. I believe back then Colorado ones didn't have registration stickers. I switched my plate with the souvenir shop one, and for the next 3 weeks I parked everywhere and got a ton of tickets. I then switched it back to my own plate before they started tracing the plate number with lots of unpaid fines. Teenage fearlessness and stupidity combined. LOL. For impossible _ guess 4. Reminds me of when a few years back when one of the local gangs called in a bomb threat for a pretty high-profile murder case starting that day, and robbed a bank on the other side of the city shortly after. Also, going of your post info, T-Mobile never changed. If you ring 911 with most every service provider, the dispatch can eventually, if need be, pinpoint where the phone is within about 10 to 20 feet with the exception of T-Mobile. T-Mobile just shows you the cell phone tower that it connected to. Don't die with T-Mobile if you don't know where you are. Lenny Fackler. I once just got lucky with a traffic stop where something came over the cop's radio and he threw my stuff back at me, said slow down, and took off with lights and sirens. Sometimes the gods are looking down on you. Zummo. Reminds me of this documentary I watched where a large group of criminals placed so many bomb threats that all of the police in the area were occupied so they could all mass rob a bank together. Just a cook guy. Back when I used to work in a field where I'd sometimes transport large amounts of drugs, I used to have a friend in a sports car following ready to speed past should I get pulled over. It worked several times, and it worked beautifully. Turkey Baster McG. I grew up in a rural, heavily wooded area, and none of the roads were straight. Twice the local policeman was coming the opposite direction and flipped on their lights. By the time they turned around to get me, I was already parked in my car with the lights off on a logging road or in someone's driveway. He knew who I was but never came to my house to tell my parents. Sasuke, 1996. This happened to me and a friend out late at night buying pot. The cops stopped us saying 2 guys were robbing cars in the area and a gun was reported. The cops began searching me and my buddy and found it all: the pot, our homemade pipe that we were smoking out of, our cigarettes, and the lighter. He begins writing up what I presumed was the report, and another officer pulled up. I assumed they were gonna arrest us because we were about 17 at the time, and it was like 1 a.m. Well, they get a call over the radio, and apparently the people had been spotted about a block away. The cop that stopped us proceeds to yell, "Get your shit and go." As they hop in the car and speed off, we recovered everything but the weed and pipe. But we got away free and clear, so man shrugging light skin own face with ears of joy. Creepy_robot. This happened to me for real when I was about to get a speeding ticket. Cop goes back to his cruiser to check my information and comes running back with everything in his hand. Apologizes, tells me he just got called elsewhere, and to be more careful. Caribou killer. Just saw on the news someone attempted this close to me. Instead of saying he thought he saw something, he told the operator he was being held at gunpoint in a Taco Bell. Only difference is they sent other cops to it, and the sheriff stayed to complete the traffic stop. Now he is getting arrested for multiple offenses. Affleeing NASA form. I once got pulled over. The cop had my documents in his car. He then ran up to my window and said, "Wait here." He kept my documents, and I waited for around 45 minutes. I was on the way to pick up my girlfriend from university. I was late yesterday and told her I will be on time today. Got a ticket and a very pissed off girlfriend. Cornick. A semi-relatable situation happened to me when I was 17 and smoking weed while driving with my friend. Enough weed to go to jail, paraphernalia, and DUI for sure. I got pulled over, and before the cop came to the window, a car went by going 80 and a 30, and the cop ran back to his car, screamed "Drive fucking slower" at me, and went after the speeder. I've never been so lucky since. Knower of _things. I'm calling bullshit. One of the first cell phones selling on the point of no location coordinating? Having one of the first, insanely expensive cell phones for the time, but not having enough gas for your PS car? Pushing your car then to get gas without someone to steer. Also, you wouldn't have one if you were on your way to work in case you decide you forgot to mention having a passenger. Didn't happen. Find things to do. Deleted user. Got pulled over by a cop after getting off work one night about a year or 2 ago with a delinquency for not paying my car registration within 6 months. The officer pulls me over and sees who I am and asked me where I was driving from. I told him where I worked, and the officer mentioned he was a repeat customer of the business and appreciated the customer service that he and his family got when I helped them. He gave me a warning to renew my registration and sent me off. I was living off chump change at the time and couldn't afford to get my car impounded. It definitely pays to be kind to others. Deleted user 2. I once got out of a ticket by telling a cop the truth and that I fucked up and would pay whatever consequences. I told him had I not run off the road in my confusion during the bad storm that I could have endangered others, and that I'd rather have hurt myself than anyone else. That I'd rather not come home than someone not making it back to their family. He handed me my papers and told me not to be an idiot next time, and just left. It was the strangest fucking encounter I've had with a cop. I sat there for 5 to 10 minutes, confused as shit. Happy Chilmera music. Nice. I have a similar story. Also an idiot in high school. I was at a high school party and we had to leave quickly for some reason. We had been drinking and my friend who was driving hadn't been drinking much, but still something to worry about. Saw a cop at the end of the street just ready to pull someone over leaving the party. So we called the cops and said we saw someone breaking into a house down the street. He drove off a minute later and made it out of there. FR3SH bread. Nowadays with call tracing you would have been in even more trouble, but given your situation specifically, I don't blame you for doing it one bit. You did what you had to do to survive. Nobody can fault you for that unless it actually brought harm to others. Billy Club's the OP answer to FR3SH bread. It was stupid because it was a symptom of how borderline my lifestyle was. I was 19, so I just moved out a year earlier, so I didn't have a lot of time making 100% my own choices, so I was in that period where my apartment was filthy, cinder block TV stand, ketchup packets sometimes to make shitty tomato soup waiting for payday, etc. Never do that now in that situation, even if I had all that stuff still messed up. But make it something more serious to my way of life or people I care about, I'd still do whatever I felt would help us. If the current expectation from outside influences is shit, I'll roll the dice and gamble on me. Juliana 5782. I did the same exact thing once. BC, I needed a cop in a speed trap to move. He was right in front of this country club. Where? Okay, I was meeting someone to get some illegal shit, and dude wouldn't do it with the cop right there. BC, he's a paranoid type of fella. So, I called in a car weaving dangerously in the area, which is a very busy one, and sure enough, cop moved and I got my shit. Friendly fellow boy. This happened to me and some friends, but it wasn't our doing. We were young and dumb, about 16 to 17 at the time, with friend's mom's car. All had a bag of weed on us, and my buddy had a 2-foot bong up front between his legs with a towel that he had spilt on himself. While we panicked and decided what to do, I had already had a couple charges, so everyone decided to nominate me to take the fall and toss their weed at me. Still lights flashing behind us, but he hasn't gotten out yet. We're freaking out. Then all of a sudden his sirens go back on and he takes off. We sat there for a good minute before we finally said, "Should we leave?" And so we did. I also kept all the bags that got thrown at me. First, fake Ben Azores. I find it extremely hard to believe that in 1995-ish, you owned both a PS small economy car with no gas, but yet were somehow able to afford to put like a $1,000 car phone in this car? And it had to be pretty pricey. The technology was new and expensive. My dad bought a Motorola big-ass flip phone in 1997 for like $600, dude. Available, reserve 505. I once got out of a ticket by telling the cop I had to take a shit. When he walked up to my window, I hurriedly told him that I knew I was speeding, and I promised to never do it again, so please hurry and write the ticket so I can go before I shit my pants. He told me to keep it at the speed limit and let me go. Largest burrito. I had been smoking weed in my friend's car when he got pulled over one time. The cop made him get out and go talk to him in the cop's car. Then he got called to another scene and told my friend to get out and stop being stupid. My friend could have gotten a DUI, and I would have gotten that possession charge if it weren't for that call. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Nurse surf it. I had a similar story, except that I just got lucky, and during a traffic stop where the cop was definitely about to give me a ticket, there was a sudden emergency that came up. No, it wasn't me calling, and the cop had to go. I was so relieved. Billy Clucks. Thanks. This sub is scary. Admit something legit worth admitting, and how do you know it won't come back to bite you? But admitting silly stuff that has no teeth is pointless. So when I remembered this, I thought it fit the bill. I was willing to admit it, and hopefully I don't regret it. Slavic the Slavic. My dad got out of a speeding ticket once by not pleading and questioning the jurisdiction on the traffic court judge. They made sure he was the last one to step up to the podium. He also coached his friend to do the same. Also worked. Chironomedy. So you worked this shitty job, but you had a cell phone in 1995? Yeah, I'm pressing X to doubt on this one. Cell phones were super rare and quite expensive back then. Personally, I didn't know anyone who owned one at the time. We were using pagers and pay phones. One Saga's one. I'm sorry, but this sounds fake as hell. You drive a beat-up PS economy car and can't afford gas, and yet you have a brand new digital phone? And that phone somehow magically can't be triangulated? And the salesman somehow thinks that's a selling point for some reason? Sphere IX. It doesn't matter that you might lose your job. It's clear based on everything you said you have a psychological disorder. I'm not qualified to assess what disorder that exactly is, but it pertains to breaking the law frequently, with no sense of remorse. Zenniswing. Yeah, this sounds completely fake. Doesn't have enough money for gas, but does have a cell phone in 1995, which would be $1,000 to $1,500. And also, how does a salesman use not being able to be traced as a main selling point? Ahmed paid. I thought I got out of a ticket, driving my sister-in-law's car. She had expired tags, and I hadn't thought to check before running my errand, when a motorcyclist was hit by a car leaving a gas station down the street. I felt horribly for the guy and still wonder how he came out. I digress. The officer sent me on my way and then issued a ticket about 6 months later, sent it to my old address, and I was out of the country. Ended up getting arrested when I came back into the country due to an unpaid ticket for expired tags. One for the memory books. Woman facepalming light skin own. OP Goblin. I got out of a ticket at court because the cop who wrote it was retiring in didn't want to come back to court if I or any of the other PPL he wrote tickets to. He was dropping them all, fought it. RB019. I had gotten out of a ticket from a state trooper once by pulling the "I have to use the restroom and I find public restrooms disgusting" card. Needless to say, it worked and I nearly shat my pants. Avatar_of_green. One time I cut my hand really badly with a machete in my car. I got pulled over for expired plates as I'm bleeding all over my car. Cop sees my hand and immediately calls an ambulance. He doesn't have time for this shit. I lived in a big city. He just left me there and went on his way. Overthinker Girl 4980. I got pulled over with open liquor and drugs. Who hasn't? Lights go on behind us. My now ex throws the baggies of drugs on me. I put them in my pocket. Smart, I know. Cops come to driver's window, asked for the usual. We give him, they see the booze, and then ask us to get out of the vehicle. At this point, I'm like, oh no, if they think we both do drugs, he could lose his job. So I told them I sold drugs and he didn't know and asked them not to tell him so he won't leave me. LOL, they told me to grab my things and be on my way and not to stop for more booze or drugs. Lucky, I say. Never got fined or arrested. I figured they were crooked cause they copped a feel when the male officer was patting me down. Oh well. GMCR's Wynardy. I didn't call it in, but I had just moved to Chicago and they have don't turn on right. Where I was from, that wasn't a thing. So he pulled me over and right as he was taking my idea, a domestic disturbance with a man beating his wife came over the radio. Cop told me to pay attention and took off. Never been happier about a wife beater. Alberta King 780. Last year I was fixing my fantasy football lineup while driving in town. As I look up and out the driver window, I stare right into the cop's eyes at a traffic light. I was already starting to laugh at my stupidity when the cop's lights flip on. As I pull over, the vehicle behind me speeds up and takes off. I know the cop was going to pull me over, but since this guy took off, he decided to follow him instead, and I laugh even more. Got TJ Yeldon in my lineup and won that week. Maximus Grassimus. Pretty sure you would have gotten lightly if you told him clearly why you didn't stop completely. Most cops in central US are pretty forgiving, especially ones in my town. Billy Clucks. Yeah, for the traffic infraction, but he still would have taken me in on the warrant. Still would have been a no-show at work. My fancy Nokia, at least I wouldn't be a no-call. And I still would have lost my job. Still shouldn't have done it. And knowing the outcome, if I could go back, I wouldn't do it again even knowing the outcome. I'd just have taken my lumps and dealt with it. MBW 1960. I was driving fucked up one night and a cop started following me. I pulled into some random driveway and cut off my lights. Got out, waved to the officer, and started walking toward this random house. Cop left. I turned around and got back in my car, pretty fucking sober by this point. Made it home. No runs, no errors. Gremlin 42. I think something similar happened to me once. Cop took my info, walked away, walked back 5 minutes later, and told me to slow down next time, then rushed back to his car. I literally didn't even say a word the entire encounter. Deleted user. A kid in my school did 40 in a school zone. The cop pulled him over and said, "I'll get back to you. Go to school," and sped off. A few hours later, the kid got called to the office and got their ticket. Ouch. Deleted user 2. I got pulled up one night when me and my mates were all a bit drunk, and we had a ton of weed in the car too. They took my license and went back to their car to check it. After that, they would have breathalyzed me and smelt the weed and searched the car. But as they were checking the license, this car drove past and screamed, "Fucking pigs," and sped off. The cop ran back to my car, threw my license at me, and went and jumped in his car to chase after the other car. Don't 420 Blaze Mebra. Edit. Wow, this blew up. I forgot to mention I would have gotten arrested, booked, and released because I was driving with a suspended license for unpaid traffic tickets and I had a bench warrant for it. Because I'm an idiot. Some kind of sound. Like the time the guy with multiple DUIs got pulled over while driving drunk. Steps out of his car, throws his car keys into the woods, and drinks down some booze in front of the cop. A Mackenzie 44. Super fake. Post history aside, it takes seconds to run your license number and receive the warrant notification. He would have been back for you. Billy Clubs, the original poster, gives him an answer. That's what I figured even back then. Because like I pointed out, by that point I'd gotten a fair amount of tickets in a short time. I don't think he did run my plate back then first. It seemed like he pulled me over and right away was walking up to my window. I could be wrong. I also don't remember now if I'd actually already registered it to me at that time. I bought that little car from one of my best friends who had just bought a new car and didn't need this thing anymore. Natenick 4570. My buddy got pulled over by a cop running late to work one morning because he didn't stop properly for a school bus. The cop pulled him over and he got a fat ticket, around $500. The funny thing is the cop drove off with his license and registration, so a couple minutes later the cop pulled him over again and returned said items and revoked the ticket. Shadow_beats. What's ridiculous is that I've never gotten a citation while I've been driving my own car, but I've gotten arrested while riding in the back of my buddy's Suburban because one of our friends had a gram of weed in his boot and we got pulled over and he got the whole car arrested. 4 of us, because he said it wasn't his. Meanwhile, I've been pulled over for speeding with a massive ounce in the car and was sent off with a warning. Guerrero Nate K. How did you do this? Did you use your phone number or *69? Because if you used your phone number, they would just call you back and most likely track you down. Then ask you why did you lie? Answer please, just want to make sure. Billy Clucks. I just used my phone. Back then the home caller ID hadn't come out yet. Or at least no one had them yet that I remember. The first caller ID I ever saw was on this phone. I do remember *69, and that may have already been a thing, but I think it didn't work with this phone. Hard to remember the techie details now of the exact reason why, but the guy had said over and over the phone was untraceable even to cops, and in that moment, I decided to risk it. LOL. Retired soul. You can still operate a vehicle safely, unless you really can't, whether if you have a suspended license or not. I would argue there are more idiots who can't drive with valid licenses than you. Fuck people with DUI though. Having a suspended license because you couldn't pay for tickets and cannot travel for work is a good example of the justice system being a joke. It does not appear that you were an idiot. You gamed a system that games you. Bravo. Billy Clucks. Up. Thanks. It really was silly how they force things to be done. I do construction that requires you to go where the job is, and I need to bring with me over 100 pounds of tools daily. So buses and trams are no-goes. I applied for a hardship license, but they denied it because it required a set drive route. My work required I go where the project is. So they took my application fee, $100-ish, and then promptly told me no. LOL. So I need to drive to make money. So I can pay fines to get my license, to be able to drive. So I can make money. No amount of logic and asking if there was another solution was fruitful. They told me to take a job making half, but a set location. Nah. Fuck you guys. I'll do it my way. Drove perfect for a few years. Got super good at avoiding cops and paid the tickets. All fine after that. But such a stupid system. It's like sending non-dangerous criminals to prison. Why? They're not violent, so why lock them up? As a punishment? And there they can't be productive at all, and our tax dollars need to 100% take care of them. They're not violent, so punish them in ways that help society not add more burden to it. But what do I know, I'm an idiot too. Face with years of joy. Billy Clubs gets called a liar. Well, it wasn't that I couldn't put gas in it. I had money for gas. I was just low on gas and running late for work. Hoped I'd make it without stopping, but I wasn't and was gonna have to get a little gas. I had a good job that paid decent for a 19 years old. I just blew my money on dumb shit like a $99 Nokia cheap junky cell phone. I rode a motorcycle as my main transportation most of the year, but bought a PS for the winter. That's what I was in. Sorry, it's so incredibly unbelievable, LOL. Yeah, clearly I'm a huge liar. Which_brain_2782. I wasted the best years of my life. When I could have been with my daughter. What's involved the toxic men? There were many of them, but there was one that I just really, what teamed me apart. And it's easy to blame them. Because of course, they made cool decisions, but the truth is, if I wasn't so flammable because of a sexual assault prior to our relationship with that in quotation, and I was drinking and popping pills, so obviously I had a hard time understanding what this man was doing to me. And all of that time. All that time. I couldn't dim with my daughter who loves me more than anybody in the world. More than that could ever love. Anybody. Sans cry all the time. Thinking about set timer wasted on stupid people. I was treated like toilet paper and Marriage the Other. And whatever they had, the very uneventful Marriage on Netflix. I didn't watch much, I was bored I gotta tell you all kind of glad. I will never, ever let anybody take away from what's important camera, and I do not need a man in my life. I am strong and I will not let another stupid person waste my time. My daughter, I love does more than they would ever understand in their plastic relationship. I liked out, but I spent so much time in a horrible hell with that man, you know, all of the events one. I really wish I had to delete it. Go back and change because I voiced a text. My messages get difficult to understand, period. All you need to know is I will never stop remorse in the time that I wasted in so many very toxic people. So that's something I have to know that with. She's now beautiful 16, brilliant. Nash Upstate debate champion. She is strong and she is smart and she is better than me, and she would never let a toxic cool man do that too. And I am proud because I guess in a way, she learned from me. Period. Stay away from those men, so I am proud to say. I do not date and all I do is take care of my daughter. Am I myself? And of course, my career is I am a psychiatric nurse and I love it. Other than that, I have no desire to ever let anybody ever touch me and take anything away from me, period. Stupid Latin nothing. That was sheer genius. I'll have to remember that one if I'm ever jammed up by a cop in a bad way. Billy Clucks. Up. No, don't ever do that. Please. I don't want this story to get people to try this. If I knew it'd blow up like this, I probably wouldn't have posted it. I was lucky AF to get away with that stupid shit 25 years ago. You'd get in huge trouble if you tired it today. Just be smarter than me and square your life away ASAP. Invest in retirement young. It'll give you so much financial peace in all your decisions as you grow older. Sleepy 1997. Fuck it, you gotta do what you gotta do. Autistic_Avenger. Nice. No victim, no crime. Statutes/codes are not laws. DLs only needed for commerce. Could go in, but gotta go to work. Yay, squad call. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe, and give us a thumbs up to support our content and to keep content coming.